Welcome back. This is number 18. You did so well to get this far. And this is for JEM and Site Or. We're doing Derech Hashem, which is the way of God, through the book inside. If you've not done this before, roll back to number 1 to get an intro so you know what we're doing. I want to give you a quick intro to what we're going to do today. So number 1, there's two main things I want to discuss. Number 1 is I want to discuss how the soul gets worn out by being associated with a physical body. And number 2, why it's going to be different when the soul and the body rejoin. That's basically it. And that carries on last time with what we did, which was what? We talked about the function of the soul and the function of the body. The function of a human soul is to elevate an ape, which is a human body, and the function of a human body is to be elevated by a human soul. That's it. There are lots of other functions that bodies and souls do, but those are the primary function. Like a car has many different functions. Its primary function is locomotion, transport A to B. It could also be used as a storehouse and to listen to music and to shelter from the rain. Lots of things you can use a car for, but the main thing is getting from A to B. The main point of a body is to be elevated by a soul. How does that happen? The soul gets the body to do things on its behalf through its lifetime. So the soul inspires or makes an instinctive force to the body to say, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. By doing that, the body gets elevated to be utilized by the soul. The soul wins when that happens because that's its job. So not only does the body get elevated, but the soul does too. If the body wins, it says, no, I want to eat pork on Yom Kippur, and that's what I want to do, and it gets to do that, then the body gets debased, it gets sullied, and the soul does too, because it didn't get to fulfill its primary function, which is to elevate a body. That's what we did last time. Now, I need to give you the upturned pot analogy. I'm not sure if I did that last time, but if I didn't, it's really important you get it. And if I did, it's good chazara, it's good revision. Originally, when Adam was made, his skin was nail. It's a Jewish tradition, like keratin. Now, if you look at your nails, which is why we have fingernails, by the way, there's no evolutionary answer as to why we have fingernails and toenails. There's no good reason. You can't say it's ridiculous. There's no good reason to why we have them. The reason, according to the Zohar, that we have them is as a reminder of what we were. Our skin was all keratinized, and it was smooth. By the way, before Noah, everyone had webbed fingers and feet, which changed after the flood. But why do we have nail? If you look through your nail has no colour. The colour, the pinky colour, whatever colour you see underneath your nails, is actually the nail bed straight through that you're seeing through. The entire body of Adam Arishan was transparent. You could see his internal organs, and you could see his soul interfacing with his internal organs. This is the concept of or with an ayin. Ayin vav resh spells light in Hebrew. Sorry, that's aleph vav resh. I apologize. Aleph vav resh spells or, light. Ayin vav resh, or with an ayin, is leather or skin. After Adam sinned, he gave him garments of skin, leather garments. That's this stuff, the opaque epidermis that we have, which you can't see through. What does that mean? However hard a soul works post-Adamic sin, it can only do so much. It's now dealing with a leather, opaque kli, a vessel that is not so easy for it to work with, and it is much, much harder work for it. Which means it cannot get it done in one go, as we discussed last time. It's going to need the death process, separation out, restoration, cleaning, reconstruction, what we call Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead. That wasn't meant to happen. Humans were created immortal. Apoptotic genetic change happened, which is where apoptosis, pre-programmed cell death, had to come into the genetic material of human beings so that they would die. God said, the day you eat of it, you shall surely die, which means if you don't eat of it, you're not going to die. You were created immortal. This is our lower state now. Let's try to understand how this works with a mashal, with an analogy. The best lampshade you could possibly have is usually 24% lead-cut crystal. Those are the most beautiful lampshades. Like a chandelier, it's made of crystal, right? Why? You put a beautiful light bulb in there and it shines and sparkles beautifully. Absolutely wonderful. Just love it. Looks gorgeous. Shines out, you get these little rainbows everywhere. It's a lovely effect. Do you know those terracotta earthenware pots that people put trees in outside of their houses? You know what I mean? And you touch them and you get like a weird feeling. I really don't like the feeling. You put your hand against that kind of pot. That's now what our bodies become. Originally, the light, the neshama, the LED, would be put into a chandelier made of cut crystal, like nail, completely clear, beautiful, would allow the neshama to radiate out beautifully. After the sin, we're now putting the lampshade into an upturned clay pot. Now, imagine that you had a really powerful LED and you put it into an upturned clay pot and you put that on the table and you turn up the dimmer all the way. Even if you were to turn it up to 100 volts, or 100 watts rather, even if it would be really, really strong, you would hardly see any light coming out that pot. Maybe the slightest glow of light at the base of the pot, as it's not perfectly sitting on the table. But as hard as the neshama can work, as hard as the light can shine, it cannot work with such an upturned clay pot. There's nothing it can do. It can work and work and work, but it's working with something that's very limited. Now, it's still its job to elevate that clay pot, but the majority of the elevation it will do is now only in potential. It's worked hard. Maybe the inside of the clay pot gets cooked and smoothed a bit, but the outside certainly is not going to become a radiant glass being. It isn't. What you have to do is take the pot apart, take the glass out, clean up the bulb, change the glass pot for a crystal chandelier, put them back together, you're good to go. That's got to be Tchis Amazing. That's got to be the resurrection of the dead. It's not going to work any other way now. Thanks to Adam Arishan, thanks to Adam's first sin, that's how it's going to work. Okay, so let's see that inside, make sure I'm not making it up. Okay, so we're on page 57, section 1, chapter 3, which is fundamentals. We're talking about humanity. We're at point 13, which is coming up now. That's the last point in this chapter, the end of chapter 3. If you have a look at the shoulder note, if you have a copy of this, look at the shoulder note. The shoulder note says, while in the body, the soul's power to purify is limited. That's basically what we just said, right? Let's look at point 13. Even before a soul enters the body and attains perfection through its deeds, it's already got a very high degree of intrinsic perfection because it's a very lofty creature. It's a very, very powerful spiritual being. The intrinsic perfection and brilliance is so great of a neshama that it, the neshama, should be able to purify man's physical being to such an extent that he'd no longer be considered a mortal human being. That's what happens when you plug that kind of electricity into that kind of animal. The soul, however, is held back by God's decree. Its power is obstructed and its brilliance reduced. Why would God do such a thing? He's made this unbelievable 10 million volt LED, which would actually blast apart a body and make it shine so great that it would look like a sun. Why does he take a dimmer switch and turn it down over 90%? Why would he do such a thing? Why make such a powerful thing and then put it into a pot? Answer, Bechira. I can't allow the soul to immediately overpower the body because if it did, there'd be no justification to any decision the body-soul complex would make. I need the soul to be just strong enough but not too strong, and the body to be just strong enough but not too strong. The body and soul are struggling with each other. A genuine choice can be made. You feel completely comfortable with the outcome of that choice, and then you feel justified with whatever I give you for that choice. If I blow your body apart with the most incredibly lofty spirituality, then you decide not to eat pork on the Day of Atonement, then what reward are you going to get? You weren't ever going to do it anyway, in which case the entire concept of God giving of his good to another justifiably is meaningless. He's got to turn the soul down to make a soul-body complex, like half animal, half soul, workable within the concept of the arena of choice. He's got to do that. You then can turn it up during your lifetime by how you behave. But when it comes in, it's got to be muted. It has to be, otherwise there'd be no Bechira. And we said absolutely Bechira is a prerequisite. Free will is a prerequisite for justification. Justification is a prerequisite for proper reward. Otherwise God would be giving reward badly. And he can't do that because he's perfect. He can't fail. Yeah? All that's earlier on. If you need to revise, don't worry. But that point keeps coming up over and over and over again. Okay, so we've seen that God's turned down the power of the soul. He's obstructed it, which seems very counterintuitive. Well, he's got to for free will reasons. So that the soul cannot do everything in its power to accomplish the total purification of the body. He's going to limit the soul's power. The soul thus remains imprisoned and restrained to the degree required by God's plan. And it can only act upon the body to the extent that God's wisdom allows. If you've got a copy of the book, write in, see page 185.3. So we see here that this 1 million candle power torch in the earthenware vessel has to be toned down to allow the vessel and the torch to be balanced enough based upon God's wisdom so that you can really make choices completely on your own. A duck makes instinctive choices. An angel makes instinctive choices. Humans make instinctive and intellectual choices and emotional choices. We can think things out. We're like, do I want to do this? I'm aware that this is probably the right thing to do, but you know what? I really fancy doing this. Let's see what, only we do that. Only we have that tussle between spiritual pull and physical pull. Not all of our choices are like that. As I said, Cocoa Pops and chocolate Weetabix, that's a physical pull. If it's Cocoa Pops on a fast day, then it's a spiritual pull to a physical pull, then it's real Bechira. Okay, let's continue. Next paragraph. As the soul continues to participate in good deeds, which is good because the body becomes elevated, the soul gets elevated, which means the power of this body-soul matrix is building, which is very, very good. It should likewise be able to spread out and radiate. The soul should now start to go, oh, this is great, where I'm getting energized here, this is fantastic. And it should purify the body. The same decree that muted the soul to start with holds the soul back and prevents the soul from functioning freely until it reaches the soul world. Now remember, what's the soul world? Olam HaNeshamas. It's the warehouse that had to be invented after Adam's first sin. People weren't designed to die. They were designed to walk into Olam Haba alive, which is this world with the evil removed. Okay? Now that Adam sinned and we need a death process, which is the pull apart, restoration, clean and rebuild, you need somewhere to keep the soul while the body rots. What's going on in the soul world? The soul world has 3 postcodes. One is Hell. One is called Gehenna. What's Gehenna? Says the Gemara in Shabbos is a laundrette. Just a laundrette. Let's say, this is a really important... Do I have time for this? Okay. This is a really important thing. Let's say there's two Jews, that both have a Yetzer Hara to eat a bacon double cheeseburger. Bacon double cheeseburger. Let's take Timmy. Timmy's walking by a bus stop and he sees an advert for McDonald's for a McBacon cheeseburger. And it just looks fantastic. Now, Timmy's a good boy. And he really knows that he shouldn't be having a bacon double cheeseburger. But it just looks so good. So he walks into McDonald's and he eats it. He's very upset about it afterwards. But he's like, but it was so good. Oh, it was such an... my tummy really wanted that. Then there's Jamie. Jamie doesn't even like bacon. He doesn't like cheese. But he feels as if it's none of God's business to dictate to him what he should and shouldn't put in his mouth. See, he goes and buys a bacon double cheeseburger from McDonald's to make a point. And when he eats it, he goes, you know, God, I know you're telling me not to do this, but really, it's none of your business. I don't care. It's really, just leave me alone. Now, both Timmy and Jamie have done the wrong thing. They've both eaten a bacon double cheeseburger, and whatever the negative points are in heaven, minus 50 points that go on their bill, they both get that. They both get the same amount of grams of bacon and cheese, whatever it is, right? The point is the treatment for Jamie and Timmy are very, very different. Timmy has an issue where his body overrode his soul. His tummy simply couldn't keep away from a yummy treat. Couldn't do it, even though his soul was telling him not to do that. Jamie didn't have to override his soul. His soul completely overrode his body. His body wasn't even interested in this. Spiritually, he felt as if it's simply wrong of God to limit me in any way whatsoever. None of his business. The damage done to body and soul in Jamie and Timmy's way is actually different. In Jamie's way, if Jamie's the guy with a tummy issue, rotting or physical illness of the stomach would be a perfectly good removal of the evil that's attached to himself in the most major way to his body-soul complex. Obviously, the soul is going to be affected as well. But in Jamie's case, this is almost entirely a soul problem. Yes, his body has now become infected by that bacon cheeseburger because a Jewish body shouldn't be having that. But from a spiritual perspective, he's got more of a spiritual malady than Jamie does. Timmy's like, whoever it is, I'm getting mixed up with names, but you get the idea. The point is that if I'm thinking that God's got no business with, that's a spiritual issue. Gehenna is a place that scrubs off spiritual problems. Whatever spiritual residue is stuck on the neshama from something negative that's been done spiritually also needs to be cleaned off. We know the body's going to be cleaned off through suffering in the world and through the rotting process. What about the neshama? Answer is, I've got a whole zone in Olam HaNeshamas, in the soul world, to deal with that. That's zone 1. Then there's zone 2 and 3. Zone 2 and 3 are what we call Gan Eden. Now, Gan Eden is a recharge booth. A recharge booth. You know, when you put a battery in a rechargeable thing in the wall, and the battery kind of icon goes boop, 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 kind of like charges up. All those things are only there to power up the soul who's lost a tremendous amount of energy fighting against the body for 120 years. It's been stuffed into an ape, into an upturned clay pot, doing its best for 100 years, or whatever it is, 120 years. And its work, you know, when you smell a light bulb after you change it, after it's been in a thing for 3,000 hours, it smells kind of burnt, it looks a bit yellowed. Got to clean that up and recharge it. The cleaning phase is Gehenna. The recharging phase, the rebuilding phase, the restoration phase is Gan Eden. Once I've got a beautiful clean bulb that's been completely restored and cleaned, then I can put that in a completely restored, rebuilt body. I'm good to go for Olam Haba. Okay? But Gan Eden and Gehenna are both parts of Olam HaNeshamas, where the neshama gets what it needs in order to be able to be fitting to come back with the body which is necessary, as we said. Otherwise, it's not a true reward. True reward has to be part physical, part spiritual, because everything we did was part physical, part spiritual. God's got to pay us in the same currency, as it was, as the same way that we earned it. So far, so good. I'm back. We're nearly done. When the soul is recombined with the body after the resurrection, however, it will no longer be bound or restricted. There's no point, because it's not getting tested anymore. You might as well let them both rip. It's fantastic. And the soul will enter the body with all of its brilliance and strength, and also the body is going to be recomposed of like this chandelier glass material, as it were. The body will then experience a great enlightenment and will not have to develop gradually as a child now does. Ain't no children in Olam Haba. What is a child? A child is an infantile human which needs to develop into a mature being. The reason why it is made as a child is to be able to deal with the evil that's in this world over a period of time. The Gemara in Bracha says, it's interesting, there's childhood illnesses that come for children. Teething, chicken pox, measles, mumps, rubella, all those kind of things. Kids get them. Why? God can't leave it to the parent to say, teach your child how hard the world is. I'll do it. I'll do it. They have to get used to evil in the world. This only happened because of Adam Arishan's sin. Notice Adam Arishan himself and his wife were created in their mid-20s, as it were. They were fully adult, what we would call fully mature. Why would he make them as children that have to grow? You only have to be born as a child to be able to deal with this world. It takes time to settle in. For Olam Haba, you don't need that procedure because the concept of test and challenge is over. There is no more test. There is no more challenge. Now it's the reaping of the reward of the test and challenges you had while here in Olam Hazeh, while there's evil to deal with. The soul will immediately shine forth and purify the body to a very great degree, which, by the way, of course, is its job, as we said last time. This does not mean, however, that the resurrected man will not be able to continue to elevate himself. The instant the soul re-enters the body, the individual is raised to a high spiritual level, as the soul's been recharged and the body's been purified, right? And the body will experience its initial enlightenment. At that point, the body will immediately be on a higher level that it could ever possibly attain in its first life in Olam Hazeh, because it's been completely cleaned, the soul's been completely recharged, and God's letting them both rip. So, of course, it's going to be much, much of a more powerful experience than an entire lifetime in Olam Hazeh. Here, we're closeted in an upside-down clay pot, as it were, and we're dealing with evil the whole time, and the soul is muted for Bechira reasons. The degree of enlightenment that you will get when you enter Olam Haba will depend upon the individual's good deeds in his first lifetime in Olam Hazeh, which of course makes perfect sense. It's what you invested in. And accordingly, you'll be placed on an appropriate level among those worthy of enjoying this ultimate perfection. Your family in Olam Haba, says the Zohar Kodesh, and also see the Alshach Kodesh on Rus, are those individuals who achieve the same spiritual plateau as you based upon their lifetime here. They have nothing to do with who you're genetically related to now. Your family are those who you'd feel most comfortable with. Based upon a full lifetime of mitzvahs, I was able to achieve X.3. So you're going to hang around with the X.3ers. That's your family. You're going to feel most comfortable with them because those are people who have essentially achieved the same spiritual darga, the same spiritual level as you. That's truly your family. That's true family. Those are who you'll really like, and you'll feel most comfortable. Think about it. You would feel uncomfortable with people that couldn't achieve anything near you, and you'd feel uncomfortable with people who achieved so much more that you'd feel infantile. You're going to want to be with people that you can relate. You're going to want to be in that sphere, in that environment, right? This level, however, is not permanent. And the complete man, both body and soul, over and over again he says this, got to have body and soul for Olam Haba, will still be able to elevate themselves in relation to the initial level upon which they're placed. You come in at level 10, you're going to grow level 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 to infinity. But you're coming in with the consciousness level 10, that's where you're starting off from. Some people come in conscious level 30, some are conscious level 2, whatever the minimum threshold is, which we'll discuss in section 2. Wow. So what have we done today? We've discussed the fact, well, first of all, we revised what the soul and the body are meant to do for each other. We also know that the soul and body now have to go through a separation period because of Adam Rishon's sin. We know that they have to be treated in both zones, both the grave and Olam and Neshamas. We know that the neshama that comes into the body in this world at this particular time has to be muted for free will purposes. But we know that once it's separated and recharged, when it's rebuilt into the body, there's no muting necessary because there's no challenge, there's no free will, there's no mitzvahs or aveiros. So let rip! And that's Olam Haba. The level you get to in Olam Haba depends completely upon how your performance, how well you've turbocharged your soul and body in spiritual and physical ways that will make you best fitting consciously for your consciousness to exist in Olam Haba. And that finishes chapter 3. Next time, we'll talk about what it is that people have to do in the world, what it is they should focus on, and how they should interface with physicality. I'm looking forward to doing that with you next time, and I hope you have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time. All the best.